Hey guys, I'm Chris, this is MMA for you, and I'm going to be doing my MMA Q A for September 2015. We got 3 questions going on. Probably be a pretty short one, Q&A. But before I get into that, let me give some shout outs here. Okay, shout outs go to Jimmy Bubba, Mr. Kapol Kid, Smooth S, Gavin Strelitz, Pete Morian, Vinny Lemia, Logan Stevenson, Trap Lord Bruce Wayne, Filler99, Blackett123, Phoenix Gaming 223, Carnius 797, Richard IV or 4, Shed 45, Michael J, Cody Borak, Kare Jensen, Cole Kano, Leandro Silva, Broski McCorsky, Mika John, what's up man? Oh, that's his name. Ryan Vo, Joe Mulligan, ML Vang, and Machiavelli. So thank you guys for commenting and whatnot. Some of you are sending me questions, emails. Some are now Facebook friends. So thank you guys very much for that. Let's just get started. Mr. Kapol Kid asks, where in your opinion was the golden age of MMA? So my thing with mixed martial arts actually started closer to Liddell Lesnar era when I really started. The first, I've heard about it. I think the first fight I actually saw was Liddell versus Ortiz 2. And then I really got into it when BJ Penn and Jens Pulver were coaches for the Ultimate Fighter. And I saw the finale where Penn beat Pulver. So I was a big fan of Penn. So I pretty much came right after Pride was around. I did go back and watch a lot of Pride fights and whatnot, but I don't have that crazy affinity to Pride that others do that were watching it during that time. I came right after. Like I said, I saw pretty much I made sure to check out Krokov's fights, Rampage Shogun, some of the tournaments, Vanderlei's fights and whatnot. So, but I wasn't there during that era, so I can't really speak for it. Unfortunately, and I wasn't there during UFC 1, and starting. I wasn't even a part of the Ultimate Fighter 1 generation. I was pretty much in the height of Liddell's pretty much in the height of Liddell's time is when I started. So I can only speak from where I started to now. So with that said, honest truth, my golden age of MMA would have to be the Lesnar era. Some may disagree with me. Obviously, once again, understand I just wasn't there immersed into the other eras before that. As far as media coverage goes towards mixed martial arts and the UFC, it's at an all-time high. Interest in mixed martial arts, just in general, was at an all-time high. Pay-per-view for the UFC numbers, their baselines were at 300,000. That was the baseline. That was the core audience would buy. There's 300,000 people of a core audience, the hardcore fans. Now you're at 90,000. So you had an extremely loyal core audience. You of course had guys like Lesnar. GSP was really getting up there. This was time during UFC 100. You had GSP was really high up there, and Anderson wasn't quite the pay-per-view draw. The Sun and stuff hasn't happened, but it will happen. He's building up to. Obviously women's MMA wasn't around during that time, but it was actually prevalent around Strikeforce around this time. So that made it really new and interesting. Rousey still wasn't a thing. Conor McGregor still wasn't a thing. Sonnen wasn't even a thing during that time. But interest for Lesnar fights were at an all-time high. It's funny because when he was fighting, I wasn't actually a big fan of his. I actually look back at him, and I'm actually like more of a fan of him now than I was during his reign. Because like when you look back, it's like, hey, you know what? He actually beat a pretty good level of competition. He brought a lot of excitement to the UFC and MMA, and by extension, MMA in general. And he single-handedly just helped bring a new audience into MMA. As shown with higher pay-per-view numbers. Obviously, once he left, others left, but, you know, some will stay. But, yeah, in my opinion, golden age of MMA, honest truth, numbers don't lie. My opinion would probably be the Lesnar era. Obviously, people are going to look back and say Pride era, fine. From the video I've seen of Pride, which is a good amount, you know. I liked it. I liked it a lot, actually. I loved the pageantry of it and whatnot. I like what Bellator's doing and trying to emulate that. I really think that there is something to be said about having those grandiose, larger-than-life type of events, you know. You know, a little more pro wrestling as far as presentation than anything else, but, you know, these tentpole events that Bellator's having, you know, I mean, they make the organization seem big. It gives a good appearance. Kind of wish the UFC kind of tried that with, like, the walkouts for, like, McGregor versus Mendez. You know, you had Sinead O'Connor singing for the walkout and whatnot. I think they can definitely take some things from there, you know. Some things from the UFC could be a little generic at times. You know, but obviously they work in a different capacity. But yeah, that's, in my opinion, would be like a golden age for MMA. Obviously, opinions will vary here. Next question. I actually answered this in the comments, but I'll probably just... I think there's a deeper narrative I can talk about here. Pete Moyen asked... It's two questions, actually. One, do you think Aspen Ladd and Andrea KGB Lee can cut to 115? And two, would you consider them blue chippers as a blue chip prospects? So, as far as the first question goes, I don't think KGB can cut down to 115 in a healthy manner. She looks really big for 125. She's pretty tall, like 5'6". A lot of her weight, it looks like, are in her legs. And she looks really kind of like as skinny as she could be. If anything, she looks like someone that will probably have to end up moving up to 135. Especially if she wants to fight in the UFC. Aspen Ladd, tough to say. I don't know if she's packing, if she has like, not to be crass, but if she has like love handles or whatnot. Maybe she can cut to 115. She appears to be pretty big for 125. I mean, Deanna Bennett has done it, but she hasn't been able to always cut weight and make weight. So it could be a case like that. And like, part of with Ladd is she's really physical. I don't know if she'd lose that at 115, if she can even make 115. I don't know if she's that tall though, so she might, if she moves up to 135, I think she'd be relatively undersized. Would you consider them blue chippers? So the thing is, I'm really into prospects and whatnot. And I guess I'd kind of like to segue this into some women's mixed martial arts, but what is like a blue chip prospect and whatnot. One would be age. Ladd is only like 20. KGB is only like 25, 26. And they only have like, as far as pro bouts go, I think they're like, have 3. So they don't have a lot of experience in MMA. When they started MMA, it seemed pretty recent. So that alone makes them prospects. They're already doing really well in their respective divisions. So they're some of the better prospects of the division. Are they blue chip prospects? Now, obviously, Andrea Lee lost to Roxanne Modafferi. That right there is what I'd call a prospect loss. when she was like 1-0 or something like that. I mean, she was like 1-0. Like KGB was 1-0, maybe like 2-0. I forgot when she fought. I think it's 2-0 actually. When she fought Roxanne Modafferi, who was like had at least 20 to 30 fights, way more experience. That is the definition of a prospect loss. It's not something that I like to hold against Andrea Lee just because, like, she took the fight on 2 weeks' notice, and she fought someone with infinitely more experience than her. And the way she lost showed that more of a lack of experience, but also that, like, Roxanne Modafferi was just way better on the ground, first of all, than Lee. So I don't hold that against her. I can, despite the reason why I point that out is because despite having a prospect loss, you can still consider someone a blue chip prospect. Like Tom Duquesnoy, he lost to Amir Khani, and Tom Duquesnoy is still a blue chip prospect. Heck, you can look at Jose Aldo's record or Junior Dos Santos' record. And like they have an early prospect loss. Just some guy they fought that was just infinitely more experienced. What would I classify blue chipper? It's someone that has shown more skill, especially in a particular area, than their experience would indicate. So in that case, I would consider Andrea Lee a blue chip prospect because her striking seems much farther ahead than most of the division. And she just doesn't have a lot of experience. So her skill outweighs her experience in a sense. Aspen Ladd, it's really tough to say because she's actually learning at a pretty good rate. Her transitional game's gotten better. When she fought her last fight against Amanda Bobby Cooper, she got the mount, she got like back mount, and then as Bobby Cooper turned around, she just started elbowing her in transition. That's a very veteran thing to do, actually. To find those holes in transition to unleash offense. So in a sense, but she's still she's still kind of not technical, Her striking isn't that great. Her wrestling's good in the sense that she's really physical, but on a technical level, it's not that she has the most technical takedowns. And on the ground, she's brutish. I mean, she's on top and she wants to pound you. Aspen Ladd does. So, but I don't think she has a standout skill to really call her what I'd consider a blue chip prospect. In relation to her division, yes. In relation to MMA, no. Anyone with like Andrea Lee's, whether it's male or female, if you're like 2-0 and you can strike at her level, and her grappling is actually steadily improving. You can tell, and with KGB, she has like natural athleticism. She'd be a blue chip prospect in any division, having that skill set. So I would tentatively say no on Aspen Ladd being a blue chip prospect. Really interesting though that this is pointed out at women's 125 pounds, which at one time was something of a wasteland of a division, and it still kind of is because good fighters. Joanna Jędrzejczyk was fighting at 125. She cut to 115. Deanna Bennett is another. Gedalia. 125 is a division that I didn't have a lot of faith in initially. But as strawweight grew and bantamweight grew, and flyweight started to grow just on its own thanks to Invicta. But you can tell that, like, if strawweight exists in the UFC, like Miesha Tate, Liz Carmouche, Alexis Davis, maybe even Kat Zingano, Jessica Ai, among others, are probably going to cut down to 125. Excuse me. And on the other side of that, Deanna Bennett, maybe even young Jacek, Gedalia, maybe Nina Ansaroff, among others, will probably move up to 125. It could be a pretty marquee division. Even if the 115ers don't move up to 125, you'd have bantamweights, good bantamweights, moving down to that division. It's nice to just see that there's prospects in this division, and they're young and they're good. KGB's good. Aspenland's good. Rachel Ostovich, who lost KGB, isn't that bad. There's another decent. There was another prospect at 125 whose name. Barb Honchak's really good. So, there is young talent in this division. So, it is actually a division that's growing. Unfortunately, because the UFC has 115 and 135, you're probably just going to see more natural 125ers move up or move down, though. But it is actually, if circumstances were different, it could actually be a pretty good division. Next question after that, Millipede asks, what are some of your noteworthy upset picks that you got correct? Here's the thing. Top of my head, I can name 4. Because one, I don't actually look at odds when I do predictions. So I actually just find out that I can guess that someone's an underdog. For the most part. But it's usually until after the fact that I actually know that someone was an underdog and whatnot. And also, there's so many videos and stuff. I honestly don't remember what upsets I've gotten, except for a very few. One of the most recent ones I'm very proud of was Anthony Burchak versus Joe Soto, though. I was just... The noteworthy ones are ones where... you can look at skill set and you can look at what's being overvalued and see why those are used to make someone a favorite. In the case of Joe Soto, he was a former Bellator champion and he had a really good fight against TJ Dillashaw. And Burchak was actually coming off a loss. He got heel hooked, So I remember they were originally supposed to fight, right? And I picked Burchak to win. I thought he's just a more aggressive fighter. He'll put pressure on Soto. And so when the fight was announced again, now it's Soto, had that really good fight against Dillashaw, and Burchak's come off loss. And who's Burchak, right? So, I can imagine a lot of people were thinking Soto's going to win this one. And then I'm thinking, and I'm not trying to brag, this is kind of what happened as far as my train of thought went. It's Soto really allows his opponent to dictate where the fight goes. Burchak is super aggressive. He's always pushing forward. So, for the most part, Burchak is going to dictate where the fight goes. So, once again, you have to watch out with things about, what's being overvalued. Sometimes ranking can be overvalued. Sometimes a marquee performance can be overvalued, like Joe Soto was. Being a former champion, there are just certain things. A guy that has a lot of hype, that can be very overvalued. I remember I got, what was it? I think it was Kyung-Ho Kang, right? I think I had him beating Michinori Tanaka. And Tanaka, that was another one I thought was okay, well, I know that Kang is the much bigger fighter, and he's an awesome scrambler. So I think Tanaka's going to have... And Tanaka is really good, but he's really hyped. And Kang ended up winning, and I'm okay, good, because it's Tanaka's got a lot of hype behind him. So, you got to watch out for hype. Sometimes the hype is warranted, but other times, it's not. Another one I liked, it's not a big upset, but I picked Joanna and Jacek over Carla Esparza. The reason why I liked this one was just because it's not that I have anything like personal against the Esparza or anything, but I've always saw her resume in relation to her ranking, in relation to her skill set, and I've never been that impressed. I always felt that certain high watermarks in her career have always had an asterisk next to it. For example, she won the is she the first Invicta FC strawweight champion, right? And it's like, oh wow, you know, she must be really good. But yeah, but she beat freaking, you know, she didn't beat that great of level competition to get the title shot. And she was supposed to fight like Gedalia, you know. I think Gedalia would smash her. And she ended up, you know, and then the opponents kept changing until she fought Beck Rawlings, you know. And it's like, okay, so in order to get your high water mark, one high water mark, you beat Beck Rawlings, you know, who isn't ranked, who's honestly a journeywoman, you know, like, to be honest with you. You know, I'm not trying to be insulting. And then, so she won, and dude, I don't even know if she defended her title, right? I totally forgot if she did. She didn't even fight like Tesha Torres, you know. So, she went into the Ultimate Fighter, and I saw her field, and I didn't feel that she was in the stronger field. You know, Randa Marcos, Joan Calderwood, and Rose Namajunas was on like one side, you know? Whereas like the best on, and even then I think Tesha Torres was actually on that side too. She ended up moving to the other side of the field. And then once again, it's like, okay, well, it's the Ultimate Fighter. But the problem with the Ultimate Fighter is it doesn't work like normal MMA. It's two rounds instead of 3. There isn't the training camp and whatnot. So it's like a lot of fighters, especially like that aren't fundamentally sound, can look really good, for example. Or like wrestlers tend to look really good in the Ultimate Fighter. And so she ends up fighting Rose Namajunas. Good fighter. Here's the thing with Rose Namajunas. Up until that fight, she was 2-1. Absolutely inexperienced. So it's like, okay, well, like, once again, your other high water mark here, I mean, once again, asterisks. There's the asterisks there. You know, it's like, you're not fighting the very best person to get said title. You know? And I think that's the problem I had with Esparza when she fought Young Jacek. Then I looked at Young Jacek's skill set. It's like, wow, she beat Juliana Lima. That's a good win, you know? Then she beat Gedalia. Even though that's controversial, they'll probably fight again. That was a really good win, you know? You look at her skill set and it's like, oh man, you know, her striking's really good and her takedown defense is stellar. So when she just clobbered Esparza, I was just like, yeah, you know, I knew that it was going to happen. Like, I can't read the future or anything, but it's just like, I had a feeling that was going to happen, you know. This one I just remember. I can't really say why I do. I remember picking Marion Renault over Jessica Andrade. I think because Andrade was coming off some really good wins. And like, Marion Renault. And I'm like, yeah, Marion Renault, trust me. Like, Andrade leaves a lot of openings. She gets really sloppy. Guess what? She drops her, gets really sloppy on top, gets triangle choked, and loses. And I was like, okay. That's why you always gotta... That's an example of just looking at, like, skill... You know, why I always like to look at skill set. Sometimes I overlook weaknesses, too. You know, stuff that, like, an opponent can capitalize on. This time, though, I got it right. I knew that Andrade leaves too many openings. And finally, Johnny Hendricks over John Fitch. I was really proud of this. I was pretty proud of this one when it happened because it's like, oh, John Fitch, you know, number 2 guy forever, you know, of welterweight. And I was like, okay, watch out. Right there. That's something that gets overvalued. What about his skill set? Well, they're both wrestlers. Well, guess what? Johnny Hendrick is an elite wrestler, though. So it's like, can John Fitch really Fitch Hendricks And then Fitch can outstrike Fitch and probably has the power to knock him out, which he did in less than a minute. So I was really happy, and I have such a good streak going on with Johnny Hendricks right now. I'm picking his fights correctly, like win or lose. Like ever since like the Rick Story fight, I think I've been right with picks with them. But yeah, I was pretty proud of that. So that's the thing with picks, it's tough. I haven't been doing great. Sometimes I'll do really good and sometimes not, but there's a lot of X factors to look at, a lot of strengths and weaknesses you just have to look at in order to get picks correctly, and there's so many, like I said, the X factors. It's just like, oh, this guy's got a lot of heart. So like guys and gals like Misha Tate or Ben Rothwell, I don't always get right because as flawed as they are, they can make up for it in X factors: heart, resilience, determination, will to win, whatever, and just watch out what you're overvaluing too. So it's a lesson for me too. I don't get them all right. And actually I've been doing probably worse. This hasn't been like the greatest couple months for me as far as picks goes, but for the most part, I still believe that fighters can get undervalued or overvalued and whatnot. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this MMA Q&A for September 2015. If you have any comments, just leave them below. If you have any questions for the next Q&A, just leave them below or email me at the cndchannel@gmail.com. And yeah, that's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.